guys, I'm back with another video. This one is going to be the true story of The Exorcist. And I'm sure we've all seen the movie The Exorcist, but it's definitely blown out of proportion, obviously. But originally I wanted to do the real story behind the exorcism of Emily Rose, but so many people have done that video. I feel like what's gonna make my video so special? So I decided to do it on the true story behind the exorcism. I'm gonna just go ahead and jump right in. I'm gonna do my best to get as much picture evidence as I can. And the only issue is this kid is anonymous, so it's going to be really, really hard. Now, Roland Doe, or Bobby Manahan, was born on June 1st, which freaks me out because that's my birthday. I'm like, ooh. Anyways, June 1st, 1935, in Cottage City, Maryland. And he was an only child. And because he was an only child, he kind of depended on the adults around him to play with him and interact with him. And he was very close to his aunt. His Aunt Harriet, or Aunt Tilly for short, his Aunt Tilly was a spiritualist, a medium, and she really, really, really liked playing with a Ouija board. So, she kind of taught him a lot of what she did, and at this point, he was probably 13 or 14 at this point. She started teaching Robbie how to use it and also other things that she knew. So on January 15th, 1949, there was a weird dripping noise in the house that started. And it was heard in Robbie's room specifically, and in his grandma's room, by both Robbie and his grandmother, but other people couldn't hear it. Suddenly, a picture of Jesus Christ began to shake, and they ended up hearing scratching noises underneath the floorboards, if that makes sense. And then that night, until January 25th of 1949, for 10 days, the scratching heard every single night from 7 p.m. to midnight for 10 days straight, and then poof, it stopped. Nothing. So on January 26th, 1949, Roland's Aunt Tilly, or his Aunt Harriet, had passed away at the age of 54. And not even one day after, the scratching stopped. Or not even a day after the scratching stopped. So was the scratching there to take her because she was dabbling in stuff that she wasn't aware she shouldn't be dabbling in? Was it there, it was watching her, and then it was waiting for her, and it was I don't know, that's just my thought. Reports are conflicting at this point. So she either died of natural causes or she died of multiple sclerosis. So I'm not really sure which one it is. Robbie was depressed after she passed because that was literally his best friend, being around adults all the time, and his Aunt Harriet specifically, he wasn't coping with her death very well. And so he would lock himself in his room for hours on end playing with the Ouija board, contacting her and talking to her. And his family thought that that was okay. They thought that that was just his way of mourning, and that eventually he would come around and he wouldn't need the Ouija board as a crutch. So after 3 days of silence, on January 28th, 1949, why do things always happen when I'm filming? I'm going to blame it on the wind outside. Rosa's coming in town. So we're just going to say that it's Hurricane Rosa and my house isn't haunted because I don't want to live in another haunted house. Oh, what is that? Oh, Lord. All right. So on January 28th, 1949, Robbie started hearing squeaking shoes on his bed that continued for 6 consecutive nights. So every night he'd go to sleep, and then he would hear the squeaking shoes on his bed. But there's no mention of anyone else hearing it, so we don't know if his family heard it too or if it was just him. Then his mom, Robbie's mom, started wondering if there was a connection between her death and the strange events that were happening in the house. Because before she didn't really hear anything. So she was oh, it's gotta be your Aunt Harriet. That's who it's gotta be. And then at some point, In the beginning of all of this, Robbie's mom even said that if this is Tilly, knock 3 times. And waves of air like began striking Robbie's grandma. So I'm assuming it's kind of like she felt like a breeze in her house kind of thing. I don't know, or like striking her. Like when I read that, I was a little confused. Like, does that mean that like the air was hitting her, or does it mean that like the air like was blowing on her? I don't know. I don't know exactly what that means. But then Robbie's mom she asked, if you're Tilly, tell me positively, by knocking 4 times. And then 4 knocks were heard, followed by claws and scratching on like Roland's mattress. And so I don't know if that means that like they saw the claw marks or if they just heard the claws like on the mattress. But either way, that's freaking terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So on February 17th, 1949, a local Lutheran minister named Reverend Schultz arranged to have Robbie spend the night at his home. Roland arrived at 9:20 p.m. and he stayed until 9:20 in the morning. And I'm sorry if I'm looking down. I'm trying to read my note cards because I have to have note cards, I've learned. If not, it just doesn't work. So the Reverend reportedly heard scratching noises and vibrating noises coming from Roland's bed. And then a chair that Robbie was sitting in previously had tipped over, and the movement of a pile of blankets that Robbie was sitting on. So pretty much he's sitting on the blankets and they're just like being moved, which is terrifying. The night of February 26th, 1949, scratches and markings started appearing on Robbie. So this is where it really started getting like crazy Exorcist style. And this happened for 4 consecutive nights. Now I couldn't imagine like being in my room alone and like scratches appearing on my body. That's freaking terrifying. Ugh. On the night of March 2nd, 1949, words began to appear and seemed to be scratched into his skin using claws. Ugh. Robbie's mom witnessed these things happening. So I hope at this point she doesn't think that it's still his Aunt Tilly, because it ain't. So there's no dates for this, but somewhere between March 2nd and March 9th of 1949, someone by the name of Father Albert Hughes of St. James Catholic Church in Mount Rainier was consulted and suggested that the family burn blessed candles and use holy water and special prayers to rid themselves of what was happening. Now, Robbie's mom allegedly witnessed a comb fly across the room and put out the blessed candles that she was burning. Fruit would fly across the room. Kitchen turned over. Milk and food was moved off of the table, and coat hangers flew across the room. And a Bible landed at Robbie's feet. And a rocking chair that Robbie sat in started spinning around in circles. And Robbie was even removed from school. His desk at school kept moving. On another occasion, Robbie's mom was sprinkling holy water around the house. As she set it on the shelf, it flew across the room. One night, she held a lit candle up against his bed, and then suddenly her and the bed and Robbie all started kind of like rocking back and forth, like an earthquake. At this point, they had made attempts to baptize Robbie, but like they were just met with rage. Like he would just start screaming and doing all of that. He was then taken to the hospital, and after a 3-day stay, the doctor prescribed the family phenobarbital. Now, phenobarbital, I'm going to just read the description right here, is a barbiturate, non-selective central nervous system depressant, primarily used as a sedative. So pretty much he was like, oh, you're possessed by demons, just go night-night. In the first week of March in 1949, Robbie was taken to Normandy, Missouri. Now, while he was there, multiple family members witnessed skin brandings appear on him. So on March 9th, 1949, Father Raymond Bishop of St. Louis University was called for the first time, and he witnessed the scratches appear and he witnessed the mattress moving. On March 11th, 1949, Father Bauders arrived on the scene. After Robbie fell asleep, around 11 p.m., Father Bodern read the novena prayer of St. Francis Xavier, and he blessed Robbie with a relic. And the relic was actually a piece of bone, like from the forearm of St. Francis Xavier. And then he placed like a relic encrusted crucifix next to him on his pillow. After both Father Bodern and Father Bishop left, a loud noise was heard from Robbie's room. And then after his family rushed in, they found a large bookcase that had been pushed up against the door. A bench was turned over and the crucifix was moved to the edge of the bed, and it started shaking. It finally stopped after his mom said, "Aunt Tilly, stop." Now, I don't know how true that is, because if my kid was being attacked and things were being moved and stuff, I wouldn't think that it was my sister. I don't know. I just feel like that statement may not be true. I don't know anybody in the right mind that's like, oh, it's got to be your aunt. Like, she loved you. She likes hurting you. March 16th, 1949, Archbishop Joseph E. Ritter gave Father Bodern permission to begin a formal exorcism of the boy. And he started that night with a man later revealed as Walter Holleran. During the month of March and into April, Robbie was moved back and forth between his aunt's house in Normandy, Missouri, and a rectory. And I had to Google what a rectory was. I didn't know. And pretty much it's like a house that the church owns. So he was moved back and forth between like the church-owned house and his aunt's house in Missouri. One of the prayers went as follows: "I cast thee out, thou unclean spirit, along with the least encroachment of the wicked enemy and every phantom and diabolical legion. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, I depart and vanish from this creature of God." So that's, I guess, what he said. When that prayer was said, markings appeared on Robbie's body. So clearly, demon ain't happy about that. Of him cussing and then vomiting, urinating, and then speaking in Latin started to happen. So I guess that part of the Exorcist was true. And then at one point, he even broke a bed spring, like out of his bed, with his bare hands, and then stabbed the arm of the priest. During yet another set of prayers, a 6-inch portrait of the devil with his hands above his head and webs stretching from his hands and big horns coming from his head suddenly appeared on Robbie's calf in red. So like 6 inches. So I guess it was like a whole portrait that was about like this big, which is freaking terrifying. So on one of the train rides between his aunt's house and that house owned by the church, Robbie had like some freak out on the train, and I guess he started like striking Father Bodern in the gonads, so to say. He started getting him in the testicles, and he starts laughing hysterically, and he's like, "That's a nutcracker for you, ain't it?" On April 18th, 1949, Father Bodern forced Robbie to wear a chain of medals and hold a crucifix in his hands. Robbie became calm and asked questions about the meanings of certain Latin prayers, but Bodern continued the ritual, demanding to know who the demon was that was inside of Robbie. So then Robbie started screaming, "I am a fallen angel," and Bodern kept reciting until 11 o'clock p.m. when Roland interrupted suddenly in like two voices, like two masculine voices. Roland said, "Satan, Satan, I am Saint Michael. I command you, Satan, and the other evil spirits to leave this body in the name of Dominus immediately. Now, now, now." Robbie had one last like convulsion, and then he like went silent. He then said, "He is gone." He then said that he saw a vision of Saint Michael holding a sword of flames. And that's like the end of it. That's all the information I could find. Pretty much, sorry, I'm setting these down. Pretty much, he went back, lived a normal life, and like nothing else came of it. There was a bunch of different stories that were reported, like news stories and stuff, but for the most part, I mean, there's not really any more information. They made a video on, or they made the movie The Exorcist off of it, and I guess that's it. I don't know. I feel like I should have like a better ending, but I don't. So that's about it. My kids are up. I'm gonna have to go ahead and get them some lunch. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for watching my video. Go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.